Hi guys, so this is going to be my WrestleMania recap from last night, which was early morning if you're in the UK, and that's obviously the night one of the WrestleMania 37. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to analyse all the matches. We're not going to break it down like move by move or anything like that, but I'm going to give you my overview and review of the event itself and how it played out. Now, we're going to start off by talking about the theme for WrestleMania 37. So that's where we're going to start. We're then going to move into the warm-up show, and then we're going to go through the matches. So they're the aspects we're going to be looking at today. So the theme, as we all know, was Pirate Theme, which was replicated from last year. Now, I know after doing some research, this was done because it was in Tampa Bay, Florida, and that's the home of the Buccaneers. But realistically, is that just to appease the home crowd now that we have a crowd and they've just recycled that from last year? It seems a little bit silly and childish to me. There didn't seem to be a real reason why we were doing a pirate theme, apart from it's the home of the Buccaneers. So it was a little bit odd, yeah, and a little bit childish. Although I did quite enjoy the large ship that they managed to construct at the entrance rampway. That was quite nice. But apart from that, I didn't really understand the pirate theme at all. So if someone could share some light on that isn't Buccaneers related, that'd be great. So overall, the theme itself, I gave it a 3 out of 10. Apart from the big ship, it wasn't really much to talk about and had no real relevance to the event at all. Okay, so moving up to the warm-up show itself. This was a complete waste of 60 minutes of my life that I'm never going to get back. Now, I love Booker T and I love JBL as much as the next wrestling fan does. They're legends, icons, Hall of Famers, what have you. That's absolutely fine. But this whole segment was just a slog. I didn't really care for the other analysts. No one really added any content or anything to the event itself. And it was just an uphill slog for 60 minutes. It was a really long 60 minutes as well because they kept updating you with timers as to when the event was going to kick off, and I was like, Jesus, is it only 30 minutes into this? I thought it'd been going on for a lot longer. And yeah, it didn't really add anything to the overall event. They already hit you with promos that they hit you with constantly in the event itself, and it was just really not needed. So they could have started the event an hour early and that would have been perfect. So for the warm-up show, I actually did score that, funny enough, and it's a 1 out of 10. It's just pants. Okay, so moving on to the order of events. Now, the thing with this is the time difference. So with the UK, I was up from 12 to 1 watching the warm-up show. There was a delay due to the rain, which was fucking annoying, but these things can't be helped, so you take it on the chin. And as I'm watching the event, it just unfolded like in a real slow, sort of sluggish pace. But we're going to try and go through this in the order of events of things that happen. So we're going to go over this in the order of the things that happened. If the order's slightly off, that's probably because I was up till 4:30 a.m. in the morning watching this, so do bear with me if it's not in the correct order, but it doesn't really matter. I'm still rating and reviewing the same details. So let's crack on. So as normal, they have the opening, America the Beautiful, and this was performed by BB Rexha. What even is a BB Rexha? I'm not really familiar with her. She looks like a ton of other pop stars, and yeah, she sung okay, I guess. I mean, there was quite a lot of flesh on show. I don't know if that was trying to overcompensate for a performance, but yeah, she could be BB pop star. I have no idea who she is. And that's just me. If you like her and you're into her music, fantastic, but I couldn't give a shit. And yeah, I'm surprised I didn't fast forward over it, to be honest, but it was an okay performance. It's fine. Now, the funny thing about this was they did have all the wrestlers out on the entrance ramp, and Vince McMahon did a little speech, which was nice, thanking the fans for supporting the show and blah, 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 blah. But the one funny thing during BB Rexha's performance was they had an electric guitar playing, some Asian playing a guitar, don't know who she was. I thought it was Oscar for a second. I was like, why is she playing guitar? And then I was like, nope, that's not her, don't worry. But during her performance, Otis was sort of jigging on the stage, and it was really funny. And it's little moments like that that actually make the show, I think. So yeah, he was quite funny, and the camera stayed on him a little bit longer than it probably should have done, but that was quite funny. So props to Otis for making that a little bit more entertaining than it actually was, and I think he pretty much just did that naturally. So yeah, props to him. So yeah, it was nothing special. It was basic startup, and I gave it a 2 out of 10. What is a BB Rexha? Okay, so the opening match was Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley with MVP on the outside. Obviously, Bobby Lashley is the champion. So with this, now I don't understand why WWE title matches first and opening at WrestleMania. It seems to be a trend that came along since the days of Brock Lesnar, where he couldn't be asked to wait couple of hours to then put on a 5-minute squash match. So it seems to be now that there's a trend with title fights, or big title fights. They should be, because they are for the WWE World title. They're just burst, and I don't get it. Is that because of McIntyre or Lashley, or is that the WWE? I don't understand. Why is that the opening match? And what happened to these other matches? Like, there didn't seem to be many matches that were non-title matches. So I don't quite get that. I think there's one, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, I didn't really get it. And just looking at my notes, I mean, yeah, it was just a kind of muscle guy versus muscle guy that I was saying to my other half as we were watching it. I said, the sort of character gimmick of these two is the same. So you've got Bobby Lashley. He's big, he's muscular, he's bald. That's it. He's a big wrestler. He's huge. That's his gimmick. Drew McIntyre, Scottish, long hair, big. They're very limited. They're very basic characters, and I think that's where wrestling really struggles from the glory days of the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. It's just because the characters are limited now. They don't really have much charisma, and they're just, you know, one-dimensional. And this was big muscle guy versus big muscle guy for the title. So, yeah, it wasn't anything special, wasn't anything to shout about. And it was the opening match, which kind of degrades the title for me a little bit. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, why is this first? It makes no sense to me. If someone has a better explanation as to why it's first, other than Brock Lesnar's fucked everything up for everybody, then please let me know. Now, there is one aspect to this match that I do want to talk about, and it's more based on Bobby Lashley, really, than the overall match, but it does filter in. So, let's talk about the Hurt Lock, which previously, back in the day, was the Masters Lock from Chris Masters, or if you're just a grappling fan, it's just a full Nelson hold. Now, it looks ridiculous, okay? I'm looking at this and I'm like, I never really believed it looked that painful. It actually is if someone really applies the pressure, but you can tell the difference between someone who's just holding you, restraining you, and someone who's actually pushing down your neck to cause and generate pain. Now, this looks ridiculous. One, because they're both huge. Two, because Bobby Lashley doesn't look like he can actually lock it up. He does. Credit to him, he does. But it doesn't look like he can for most of the match. And a lot of the matches, they're trying to get a high point where they're scrabbling to get the lock in. But it just looks ridiculous, because there's lots of times where the arms aren't being controlled. And it's like, just pull your arm down, Drew. Like, no, they need to work on that. But yeah, I think it's an awful submission hold. It was nice though at the end. Obviously there's going to be spoilers, by the way, for this. I'll put that in the title as well, so you're aware, just so you're not watching this and then shouting at me. But I did like the rollover towards the end of the finish, where Drew is in the Hurt Lock and he runs up the turnbuckle, flips over. Very much reminiscent of Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart at Survivor Series 96, I believe. I'll put some footage in there as well, just in case you want to talk about when he's in the Cobra Clutch. And he actually finishes the match that way. And I thought that's how it was going to go down, if I'm honest. Because of the fact that they took the belt away from Drew, and then they gave it to Lashley just before WrestleMania. And this is an exact replica of the WrestleMania where Drew won it. I was like, Drew's going to win this. It's going to be in the crowd that he should have had originally. No, they completely surprised me, actually, which I'm open to surprises. If WWE can surprise me now as an adult, that is something to be, you know, credit where credit's due. But yeah, so I expected that to be the finish, and it wasn't the finish, and Lashley rolled him over again, and then Drew apparently passed out from the most ridiculous submission hold I think we've had in wrestling, to be honest. Hulk Hogan tried to big it up at the beginning with Titus O'Neil. I'm not even going to talk about Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. O'Neil was carrying him throughout that whole show. And yeah, just really ridiculous hold. I don't really get it. And yeah, they need to come up with something else. But yeah, apart from that, the match was, you know, pretty average. Yeah, I think the roll-up win for Drew would have been better. Give him that title win in front of the crowd that he deserves. He could have always dropped the title to Lashley in like a squash match on Raw or something. But yeah, so we're going to give that one a 5 out of 10. And I think that's being quite generous, to be honest. I'm pretty sure the next match was the Turmoil match for the #1 Contenders Tag Team titles. So the winner of this was going to go on to face Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler on the next show, part 2, night 2, whatever they're calling it now. I think it's actually night 2 they're going with, but whatever, it's part 2, same thing. So this had Carmella and Billie Kay versus Lana, Naomi, Tamina Snuka and Natalya, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. So one of the highlights of this was, I'm actually not sure which one it is because I'm pretty sure they're the same person, but one of the Rose and Brooke two, I think it was Brooke, fell over, like slipped because it had been raining. And that was probably the highlight up until that point because the McIntyre-Lashley match was a bit of a sleeper. So that was quite funny. She played it off like a champ and it was all good. This match itself was a little bit of a mess. I don't fully know what a turmoil match is. I don't know if this was trying to be original concept or if they've done something like this before. So what I actually thought was going to happen was that it was just going to be a big 10-man tag team, maybe even tornado style, and it was just going to be a process of elimination, a bit like a battle royal but with tag teams, which is something we've seen similar to before. That wasn't the case. That didn't happen. So that was weird. It turned into some sort of gauntlet Royal Rumble where two teams, normal tag match, and then the winner stays in, loser fucks off, new team comes in. Okay. Different, but yeah, I think a big mass of people probably would have been more entertaining. But there we go. So the women's division obviously has improved massively. We all know this. Sometimes I actually prefer watching the women's matches over the men's just because they're better. They seem to have better matches. I don't know what's going on. The characters actually seem to be better as well, in all fairness. But yeah, so the teams sort of seem to be thrown together as a hodgepodge of wrestlers who just didn't have anything else to do this night. And they were like, do you know what? We need to create a new tag team. So let's just pair loads of people up who haven't got anything to do. We'll have an elimination style match and hopefully one of these teams will take off and maybe they can fight with Nia and Shayna for a little bit longer. The team of Nia and Shayna is kind of a bit more established, but they are a little bit weak as well as a tag team at the moment. They're in their infancy still, I feel. They haven't quite reached their full potential, but they were thrown together. They were a hodgepodge team as well. New technical term, hodgepodge. It's going to probably be said a lot. So yeah, they were thrown together. A lot of them looked the same, and I think that's why they were thrown together. As I said, Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose are, I thought, were the same person. Even the commentator got one of them names wrong at one point. They thought it was the other one. I was like, they looked the same. They're wearing the same clothes. Really weird. On a side note from that, though, I think Billie Kay stole the show a little bit, even though she wasn't featured heavily. She was really fucking funny. Her and Carmella had quite a good... Carmella. They had good chemistry, and Billie Kay seems to be naturally quite funny. I don't think her wrestling's up to too much, but she's got charisma and personality. So yeah, she was hilarious, and I found myself laughing a lot at her. So that was quite entertaining, and yeah, it wasn't a bad match. I mean, you know, Tamina and Natalya. I'm struggling with the names today, guys. Won, and she moved on to the second night, so that'll be an interesting match, I guess. I mean, she's a decent wrestler. Tamina seems okay. You know, she was meant to be Nia Jax's partner, so they're obviously not together anymore. A bit weird. I don't think the gold's going to be changing hands anytime soon, and I gave that match a 5 out of 10. So there you go. Next up, we've got Cesaro and Seth Rollins. As I said, I think this is the order it happened. It was really late last night or early this morning, and yeah, it's a bit of a mad bunch of matches, really. So yeah, but Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. So finally, Cesaro gets his sort of singles match for WrestleMania. Everyone knew that going in. That was the sort of talking point. The other reason for them fighting was because he swung Seth Rollins around a few times. That didn't really make much sense to me. So yeah, we have that. Apart from that, there wasn't really a reason for these two to be fighting, and it seemed like he was just paired up with Seth. Seth had nothing to do. Seth a great in-ring competitor, and they wanted to give Cesaro his match, his day in the sun. So they did. Cesaro won. It was a really good match. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about that, to be honest. The counting of the swings at the end was a little bit dubious. Michael Cole added the 23rd. I don't think they actually got a full 23rd swing, but you know, it's WrestleMania, fuck it. Like, he's swinging the guy around. We'll let him have it. So yeah, it was kind of predictable, but it was well deserved, and hopefully he gets the push now that he should have had originally. You know, I've always liked Cesaro. I've always thought he was quite good. And yeah, he never really seemed to get the singles push that I think he probably deserves. But yeah, so that match got a 7 out of 10. I quite like that match. Okay, so we've got next up the Raw Tag Team Titles match. This was Omos. I hate that name, and I hate his wrestling attire, but he's huge and he's interesting. With AJ Styles versus the New Day, made up of Kingston and Xavier Woods. So you can't really go wrong with New Day. They're probably one of the best tag teams of the 21st century. You know, they're obviously PC, and I think they'd be a lot funnier if they were in the Attitude Era, with the likes of like the New Age Outlaws and the Dudleys and Edge and Christian in their prime. Like, they missed out, really. They're in a bad time for tag teams, and they're sort of carrying the load. But AJ and Omos, I was quite surprised by this, actually. I mean, AJ, obviously, as we know, the phenomenal one, and he is, as his name implies. But Omos, I was like, he's either going to be a flop or he's going to be really interesting. And yeah, he looked devastating. I mean, he looked five times taller than AJ Styles. Booker T joke for you there. And yeah, I think paired with these guys, he looked even bigger than I think he actually is. So it would be really cool down the line if they did a Diesel HBK sort of angle where they break up and Omos goes his own way and maybe has a feud with like Braun Strowman, the two big giants. I think that'll be more interesting than Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley. So that could be the giant match that we're sort of looking for. And yeah, I was quite impressed with that. It sort of went down the predictable path again. Obviously, AJ, the smaller guy, in first, getting completely schooled by one of the best tag teams we've ever had. And then Omos comes in and decimates. And it was actually really entertaining, even though you could see it was going to go that way. And yeah, I mean, he's huge. I don't like his wrestling attire and I don't like his name. The name I can sort of get over, but he needs to change the gear a little bit. I don't know what to put him in, but I didn't like what he was wearing at all. He just looked like a doorman of a club. I don't know if that's the look they're going for, but I think I could really go to town. Like, I'm not talking like Kane or Undertaker like that, but maybe, well, he could probably pull off the vest and tights look of the Undertaker. I think something a bit more like that, rather than the tank top. I didn't like that, and the work trousers. Yeah, it wasn't great. So yeah, he looked pretty solid for a big dude in wrestling, and it was quite believable, the smackdown he layeth on their candy asses. And I hope they go down, as I said, the Diesel HBK route. I think that'll be a cool storyline. AJ's definitely the right guy to pair him with, and to have that storyline with as well, because he's very Shawn Michaels-esque anyway. So yeah, that would be a great storyline for them to latch onto. They can rinse and repeat now, I think. You know, it's the PC world, but use what worked. Like, they could have used the Stone Cold Bret Hart finish, as I said, from Survivor Series in the title match at the beginning. And they didn't. They missed a trick there. So, you know, that's something they're going to have to look at. But, yeah, we'll see where they go with that. But, yeah, he couldn't be paired with a better partner. So, I will say, though, there was at one point, Omos had one of the New Day in this, like, sidewalk slam position. And he'd just done a backbreaker to the other member. I forget which guy he was with at the time. And I was like, oh, we caught in a sidewalk slam. And my mind immediately went to like Kevin Nash and The Undertaker and Kane, where they do the big sidewalk slam because they're big guys, they're heavy. It looks good. It's a really good looking move. And he didn't do it. He transitioned from that awkwardly into like another backbreaker. And I was like, surely he could have been like, I'm already at a move. I know I want to do two backbreakers, but maybe I could just do this move instead, like mix it up a little bit. So that was a little bit weird, and I would have kind of liked to have seen that. That's me being really nitpicky, but it's just something that came into my head. I was like, oh, sidewalk slam, don't see that much anymore. You know, the big guys kind of don't really do that as such. It's not go-to move of Braun Strowman anyway. But it didn't happen, so it's fine. We got another backbreaker. You know, we'd already seen one. Mix up a bit, please. But yeah, he's got a lot of potential, so I'm excited to see where they go with him and AJ. And yeah, I'll get over it. 7.5 out of 10 for those guys. Okay, so next was the steel cage match between Shane McMahon and Braun Strowman. Okay. No real reason for you two to be having a match. And the whole stupid bully storyline, crikey. That was so poor, or to steal an American term, lame. Like, what the fuck are we doing? You called him stupid. Is that it? Is that what we're resorting to now? Is that like the laziest story writing ever? I don't understand that storyline. And then Braun was just kept spurting on about, I'm doing this for all the people that have been called stupid. Oh, God. That was awful. My God, that was awful. So, the stupid storyline was a stupid storyline in itself. So, fantastic. And yeah, I guess that makes the Moppy storyline with Perry Saturn back in the day genius too, huh? Remember Moppy? Perry Saturn? Okay, at least that was funny. But yeah, so I really struggled to get past the whole stupid bully storyline. I just felt like the PC WWE was just making sure that you're aware they're PC. So that was really, really shit. I didn't like that. I didn't buy into it. So then I struggled with the match itself because of that. Shane O'Man ran for most of the match, and this whole MMA style and aura that they try to give him really drives me mad because it just doesn't work. They always give you training footage of him doing like boxing. He looks awful. He can't box. He can't do MMA. And they're just trying to steal real world elements to try and legitimize him as a wrestler. And it's just... He was the guy that Kurt Angle lobbed through like 5 King of the Ring glass things and broke him multiple times, you know. Not even really on purpose, so this guy's not a legit wrestler. He's fun because he takes risks, a lot like Mankind, but at least Mankind Mick Foley could actually wrestle, although being a glorified stuntman as well, but he could wrestle. So yeah, it was a sort of slow match. He kept slipping under these exaggerated punches and trying to angle off and do these little combinations in Braun Strowman's ribby ribs. And I'm just looking at it like, Braun would just be like, what are you doing? He wouldn't even react to any of that in real life, in a real conflict. I know wrestling's not real, but, you know, try and... The art is they tell a story and they suck you in, even though you know it's not real. That's the art, that's the entertainment side. And, yeah, it wasn't entertaining. Didn't buy it, as bollocks. So we had to deal with that, and the match did start to get better in the last sort of quarter. We had some high spots that you typically get from cage matches, which was Shane clearly was going to be thrown off the top. That was obvious. It's Shane McMahon, and it's a cage. So you put him in a match where there's anything potentially high, even if there isn't, he's going to find a way to throw himself off of it. So you got the coast to coast from the top rope, which was cool. And then you got him being thrown off the top by Braun, which was also cool. Happy with that, you know, not a problem. That was quite good. There was an original spot in there where he broke the cage open and pulled Shane in. I really liked that, actually. So the last quarter of the match really picked up and sort of saved the rest of the match because it was quite boring up until that point. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. But there was a point where Shane should have just escaped, and it made no sense that he didn't win at that moment because he hit Braun with the toolbox that he found up there. How was he finding shit up there? Fucking in some weird container that, I don't know. But yeah, 6 out of 10. It was okay in the end. They saved it at the end of the match. So the next match, the co-main, was The Miz and John Morrison versus Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. This should give you a pre-warning of what's coming. And I'm sorry. Okay. Now, I need to start off on a positive here because I am going to get quite negative in a minute. So this is a warning. And if you like Bad Bunny, I'm really sorry. But I'm not sorry. Okay. So The Miz and John Morrison are fantastic wrestlers. They're great on the microphone. They've got great charisma. They're great in the ring. They're great together. Brilliant tag team, and they should have really been the ones fighting for the title. Hope they get Omos and AJ next. I really do. Give New Day a little bit of a break. Send them on their way because Miz and Morrison, Eminem, they could be champions again. They're good heels, and they're really good wrestlers. Now that's out of the way. I hate Bad Bunny. I'm sorry. And I know hate's a strong word. And I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt in previous pay-per-views, but they've roped him into WrestleMania. And I've seen every WrestleMania. I'm a fan of WrestleMania. I'm a fan of wrestling. Don't do this to wrestling, okay? Stop fucking doing this, WWE. So I hate everything about him. His name, his look, his music, didn't like it. And that's fine. You know, I'm allowed to dislike these things. Let me know in the comments if you actually like him. I haven't yet spoken to anyone that does. And I just don't get it, you know. He's tiny for starters. It's not believable. It's just not even believable that he could get in the ring, let alone mount the offense that he did. Now, before we get any further into this, I need to point out to you, for any of you that thinks he did a good job, he didn't do a good job. It was the Miz and Morrison basically wrestling themselves to make him look good. This match does nothing but highlight how good they are as wrestlers. They carried him and wrestled themselves. They were doing moves and holds to themselves to make you think that this stupid rabbit was doing it. That's how good they are, and that's how shit he is. He didn't know what he was doing. He just literally went limp for most of it, and they just made him do moves to themselves. That is massive credit to Miz and Morrison, and I don't think they're ever going to get the respect they deserve for that. So, yeah, that's literally where we are. I mean, we first saw Bad Bunny, I think it was when he did that horrendous rap song, or dancing around a board looking Booker T. I had no idea what was going on there, and that segment went on for way too long, and Booker looked super bored. So, yeah, I didn't really get what that was all about. And I mean, I've got to score this match. I mean, I've ranted a lot in my notes. I really have. I mean, as I said, yeah, due to 99% of his offense not being believable, this highlighted how good Miz and Morrison are. And I can't believe WWE is still using unbelievable celebrities, if he even is one, for matches like this. There's plenty of people on the roster you can use. Have them do a guest spot or guest appearance like you're doing with that Jake Paul, Logan Paul, whichever one it is, one of the stupid Paul brothers. Put one of them in as you're doing, as like a guest spot. You know, it's fine. That's fine to do that. Adds a bit of, you know, pizzazz to the match. Don't put them in the fucking match. Don't do it. Please, don't do it anymore. It's painful. So painful. So I thought I was the only one who didn't actually know who Naughty Rabbit was, and it turns out a lot of people don't. I think he's mainly popular in Latin America and America itself. He doesn't seem to have crossed waters, but I don't know who he is. And I don't care. I'm not going to research him. I saw enough. So I've split the scores for this one, and I have to score them separately because I didn't want to take anything away from Miz and Morrison. So Team Easter, which is Stupid Bunny and Priest. I felt sorry for Priest, to be honest. They got a 1 out of 10. They sucked. They absolutely sucked. And that wasn't really Priest's fault at all, but, you know, he had to give Bunny his day in the hutch. Eminem, for me, got 7 out of 10 because they fucking tried. They fucking tried. They tried to make that match into something. And, yeah, I just couldn't get over my hatred for Bunny and the WWE forcing him on us. I just couldn't do it. It's the worst name. You wouldn't give that name to an 80s wrestler or a 70s wrestler or a 60s wrestler. You wouldn't have come across Bad Bunny or Captain Bad Bunny or Dr. Bunny. It just wouldn't have happened. We had some seriously weird gimmicks back in the day, you know, but Bad Bunny just wouldn't have been one. We had Honky Tonk Man. Honky Tonk Man fucking rules, by the way, and he would have kicked Bad Bunny's ass, so it's just bollocks. I just can't be doing with it. So, yeah, I'm not scoring the overall match. I'm splitting it into 2. So 1 out of 10 for Team Rabbit, and Eminem gets 7 out of 10. That's that. Okay, so we're coming to the end. Main event, SmackDown Women's Title match. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. The EST versus the Boss. This was a great match. This really saved the show, especially following on from that horrendous co-main. So, yeah, I mean, what can I say? There was a great build-up. It was simple and it was effective. It was the new challenger on the block, the EST, Bianca Belair, coming up saying, I'm just going to take your title. I'm better than you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to be the champion. And it was Sasha Banks saying, I'm the champ. You're the new girl. Bring it on. That's it. Simple, effective storytelling. Wrestling at its finest. That's normally how a wrestling storyline goes. If you can't come up with anything, because you don't need a storyline for everything, the storyline can just be, I'm going to beat you. I'm better than you. That's probably the best storyline out there. That's competitive. People understand it. Like, from a fighting sense, I'm better than you. I'm going to beat you. That's how every boxing match and MMA fight is ever done. Like real combat, not sports entertainment, real combat sports. I'm better than you. I'm going to prove it. And then the other person goes, bring it. Just bring it. Simple, effective, great storytelling. So they didn't need to jazz it up at all. Now, obviously, after Belair's Royal Rumble win, you kind of looked at it and went, whoever wins this Royal Rumble is probably going to get a push if they're not already been pushed. She won. She beat Rhea Ripley. They're both being pushed. In this instance, I kind of predicted that she was going to win. I should do some prediction games. There should be something out there I should be doing, because I think I only got one of these matches wrong. So there's betting for this. I should probably get into it. But yeah, and even though it was predictable, it was great. It was a great match. It really was. It was a high point for both ladies, and you could tell that early on because their emotion was coming through. Like, it looked like they were both going to cry. And I was a little bit annoyed by that in the first instance. And I'll tell you why. My first thought was, be fucking professional. You're here. You're meant to be telling a story. You're meant to be hating each other, and you look like you love each other and you're besties, and they probably are. And my first thought was, be fucking professional. And I was a little bit annoyed. And I was annoyed for about 3 or 4 seconds. And then it dawned on me why they were so emotional. WrestleMania for them is the epitome of their sport. It's the top of the top. It's the high echelon. And you could kind of see how much it meant to both of them, especially being in front of a crowd. There was a lot more emotion there. And then it sucked me in. I didn't feel pissed off anymore. I got sucked into the match, and I was like, yeah, this means a lot. And it's just that simple thing that happened that made me more invested in the match. I was already invested because I like both of these wrestlers. They're really good on the mic, in the ring. They're talented. They're talented than most of the blokes that are on there now. And it sucked me in. And I was like, oh, this actually means more than just winning the title. It means more to them than just about. And yeah, I think it sucked most of the audience in. I think most people would agree with me on this one. They'll probably disagree with me on a lot of them. But yeah, I really got suckered in, and it was a great match. It was back and forth. It was very, very competitive. You know, the use of Belair's extraordinarily long hair in the match by Banks could have gone 2 ways. It could have looked really corny and cheesy and sort of catfight style-esque, but it wasn't. It was used in a sort of cunning approach to get more leverage, or to look like it was getting more leverage in certain moves and holds, and it really paid off. And I think that's a testament to both of them, for obviously Belair selling that, and from Banks actually doing it, you know, with the moves that she was applying. And yeah, it was a really good match. And the point where she got whipped with the hair, and there was that line and the sound it made, I was like, whoa. And I never thought something as simple as that could sucker me in even more, because, you know, you see stuff like Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell, him throwing him off. That's like a oh my god moment. She got whipped with hair. So on paper, this doesn't sound impressive. She got whipped with hair. It made a loud noise. It made a visible mark. And a lot of people were like, open mouth from hair whip. Really odd. But yeah, we were like that at home. Me and my partner stayed up. We watched it. The sound, we recoiled from the sound as though we'd been hit. And, you know, it's little moments like that that change history. And they also emphasize in the matches how good they are. It's them little things that separate, you know, the first title match, Lashley, McIntyre, it separates that from this. That's the difference, is those little details that suck you in. And, you know, they did it. They nailed it. It blew me away, really. Belair's show of strength as well in the match. Most of her moves were high profile, full of strength, something I didn't expect from her. I know she's saying she's the EST of everything, strongest, baddest, whatever. But the strength was incredible. She had her in like a military style press slam position outside the ring, walked up the stairs with her above her head, and then threw her over the top rope so she didn't weigh anything. It's really impressive. You don't see that in the women's division. I mean, you haven't really seen that since like China, and I don't think China's ever done that. So it was really impressive. It was a really good match. Both of them showed off their skills and their talent. I fully believed the hype. I got fully sucked in. You know, it was a little bit predictable. I think that she was going to win because of the Royal Rumble push, but she deserved it. You know, she nailed it. And yeah, it was well deserved. The girls stole the show. 8.5 out of 10 for me. It was close to being a 9. There was just a couple of moves where it didn't flow as nicely as it could have done. It's just them ironing the creases that needs to get it up there. But yeah, I didn't want to score it too highly because there's so many matches that are a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And so yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for me. It was the best match on the card. And I'm really looking forward to part 2. There's a lot more matches on paper for me that appeal to me more characters that I like, and storylines that I want to see wrapped up, especially with The Fiend. Obviously, the burning thing's a little bit silly, but it's cool. They're doing something different. They're trying. Bray Wyatt's probably one of the most underrated wrestlers, I think, on the card. Randy Orton's a solid performer, so that match is going to be good. Roman Reigns being heel is one of my favourite things at the moment. I didn't like him as a babyface, and I said they should have been changing him to heel long ago. I don't really like Daniel Bryan. I've never really understood the hype, but he's part of the PC era, so people love him. And obviously Edge is back, and they're all in one match. So, you know, Daniel Bryan is a solid performer. I just don't really like him as a wrestler. He's not for me. He's not my cup of tea. But Edge and Roman Reigns are. Roman Reigns is like a hybrid of Edge and The Rock, basically. You know, I think it's a perfect analogy. And yeah, I'm interested in all of those matches. But Rhea Ripley, I hope she upsets Asuka. That'd be great. She looks like a breath of fresh air. She's got a different look to her. She's tall. You know, she did well in the Royal Rumble. So I was kind of actually backing her to win that, but she came second. So there you go. So we'll see part 2. Now, because of the time frame, I won't be doing a recap show for that in the same fashion or time frame as this one. This has been rather quick because I won't be staying up for it. That's basically why I'll be behind. I'll be watching it Monday evening, so I've got to stay away from spoilers. And then I'll probably do the video either Monday evening or starting a Monday evening to release it on Tuesday evening. So it's going to be a little bit late. Yeah, so it is what it is. But yeah, I thought I'd do a WrestleMania recap. That's my partner's idea to do it. So I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of it. I'm fucking yawning and everything because I'm shattered. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you for part 2. Join me for part 2 when we recap that as well. And yeah, peace.